questions I get asked the most is how I color graded that footage. I've had interesting comments saying it's not from Ghana, whatnot, and it all boils down to how I color grade it. So as a preliminary, right, I'm going to share with you how I usually color grade all my footage. It comes in 4 simple steps, sometimes 3, even 3 depending on the time of the day. So let's delve in and see how these 4 steps work. The first thing that I usually do is I work on my color space transform. Because this clip was shot on a flat profile, that's decent, like on DJI Mini 3 Pro, I have to convert it to a color profile that I can work with. Usually people call it Rec 709. So once I do the conversion, this is how it looks like. So this is after, this is before, this is after, this is before, this is after. Now you realize that the color temperature is all over the place. So one of the very first things that I do is to fix the temperature, or fix everything else that has to do with camera settings. After I fix the temperature, this is how it usually looks like. Now let's move on to the next step of the process. I usually divide my video into 2 parts. That's the skies and then every other thing. To highlight just the skies, I make use of power windows. Now let's delve in. Let me unhide this and let's go to the power window. So for this particular sky, I use the box power window, and then I soften the base of it to around, let's say 16ish, so that it comes gradually from here to here. Now if I isolate it alone, this is how it looks like, right? The sky, only the sky has been selected. After I select the sky, I use my primaries. I make use of my primaries to ensure that it's popping out. And one of the ways of doing it is to reduce the gain, reduce the lift. Make sure that all in a bit to make sure that there's contrast in it. Once there's contrast, you see that the skies and the clouds and all the lights are now popping out very well. One of the things too that optionally you can do is add a bit more color to specific colors. So for this one, if my sky was blue, I would have added blue saturation, but because this one is sunset, I added a slight twinge of orange in the saturation to ensure that it's standing out a bit more. Now what if this is before and this is after? Before, after. Now that I'm okay with where my sky is, I can now come to the outside node. What the outside node means is that whatever selection that you do for this, the inverse of it is what we call the outside node. So for that one, you can just right click the first node that you did, go to add node and go to select add outside, and it's going to give you this. With this being selected, now I can apply all my grids to ensure that it is popping out. And it also has to do with the same thing that we did before. That's the primaries. You lift the gain and then the lift a bit so that it's popping out a bit more. So this is how it looks like after I apply all the grids. Before, after. So right now you can see that the sky is popping out, and then the road or everything else is also popping out. But you can see that there's a sharp contrast between how the skies look like and how the roads look like. That will take us to the third thing, which is the look. The look is, for me, I call it a connector. It connects both the sky and then the road. So what that does is that this is before. This looks warm, this looks cool. So I introduce something that will make it blend together. Some use temperature, but in this instance I used my custom curves to ensure that it's introduced a bit more warmth in it, so that you can get it graduating from here to here. Now I'm very okay with what I have right now. In fact, I can export it like this. I'm okay with it, but I want the sky to be a bit more dramatic. So with that being said, I add a highlight to the sky. So you can see that in there, there's the sun peeking behind the clouds over there. So I want to bring a bit more detail to that. This is before, this is after. Now, how did I do that? If I isolate it alone, this is how it looks like. For this particular selection, what I did is that I went to my qualifiers and tweaked my luminance and saturation such that it's picking only the highlights. Only the highlights. If you want to go a bit further, right, you can intersect it with a power window. But that is not always the case. You can just simply go to your qualifier and select only the brightest parts of the video, right? And that will give you that effect of, that dramatic effect. Currently, I'm done. The next step will be to just add a bit noise reduction. Because of the time I shot it, there will be some natural noise in it. I don't want to eradicate everything, but what I can. So I'll add that noise reduction, and then that's basically it.